Hey, everybody. Welcome to Friday Facebook Live. It is January 6, 2023. Hope you all have a fantastic Christmas and New Year's. And thank you for tuning in today. We have got a super special guest today because we are talking today about teas. We're going to have a tea party. This is John Cullicutt. John is the COO of PLANTSTRONG Foods, but I actually have known John for well over 20 years. We go back to John was an incredible national champion, world record holder, rower. So we have an athletic background in common. We actually also played poker together going back to 2001. Most recently, we play a lot of disc golf together. John, I have the utmost respect for John because back about 20 years ago, he and a buddy of his started a tea company. And if you guys have any questions about tea, we hope to answer those today. But it just made sense on so many levels. And you guys know one of our tenets at PLANTSTRONG is that we want to be mindful of how many liquid calories we're consuming. And most Americans today consume somewhere between 500 to 1,000 liquid calories every day, starting with their coffee with sugar and creamer and ending the day with their cup of red wine or a beer or two. And in between, we've got everything from soy mocha lattes to protein powders to coconut waters, and it adds up in a hurry. And so we thought we would introduce some of the best teas in the whole wide world as one of our PLANTSTRONG new products. And I want John to kind of help me walk through some of these. John, how are you doing today?
Man, couldn't be better. I love being here. I love being at PLANTSTRONG. Good to see you, Rip. And yeah, you know, our history together goes way back. And I think all along our trajectories were coming towards each other. And we knew at some point we'd be doing something together. And I'm so excited to be part of this team.
Yeah. So John, 20 years ago, you got into the tea business.
Yeah.
Can you believe how much information you've amassed over the last 20 years regarding teas, the tea industry, and such?
Yeah. I mean, not only the vast amount of information, but, you know, we talk about tenets here at PLANTSTRONG. And one of the things we try to do, obviously, is bust those conventional wisdom myths that are out there about food. And really, honestly, I think what surprised me most about the tea industry is how much conventional wisdom is out there that's just wrong. And so it's something that we've tried to do with the company I was working with, and so many people in the tea industry are trying to get a lot of this information out, and hopefully we can do the same thing here at PLANTSTRONG as well.
Yeah. And so just to give you guys a little bit of a background, John was the COO of this tea company for 20 years. They process, package, and ship teas literally all over the world. He spoke at national and international conferences and served as a judge at different global tea championships, and has quite the refined palate for all things tea and food. I am finding. But John, we just launched 7 different teas at PLANTSTRONG.
Yeah.
4 hot teas and 3 iced teas. But today, I think, you know, it'd be nice if we focused in on our hot teas, but specifically, let's focus in on our black cumin vanilla chai. That's just, you know, one of our 4 hot teas. But before we do, can you let everybody know, like, what makes these PLANTSTRONG teas so special? Like, why are they unique from anything else that's out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the list is extremely long. So I'll hit just a couple of high notes. But one thing I want to do before I kind of dive into that is give a little bit of background. Thanks for the introduction on that. And yes, my background in the tea industry, tremendous journey that I took with my coworkers, my teammates there at that company. But I want to say specifically that all of my knowledge comes from the real experts in the tea world, the people that are at origin, the human beings that work in the tea nurseries that are sprouting the plants and taking the clippings and creating new tea bushes, the people that are in the fields planting those, pruning them, the tea pluckers that are carefully harvesting just the right leaves. and the workers that are in the processing factories that are turning that from what comes directly off the bush into what you see in the tea bag. And then, of course, the packaging factory, the people that are doing the blending and putting it into these products that you can actually purchase and drink in your home. So those are the real experts. And I've just been super fortunate to absorb as much knowledge as I can. You could say that I was steeped in their experience. And so that's where my background really comes from. So to answer your questions about our teas, really having the knowledge and the background in the tea industry, what I wanted to do is make sure that we did what I think is the right way to source teas, which is to go directly to the origin, to go to the people that have the boots on the ground, that are actually producing the product, because not only are they the real experts, but they are also able to provide the product directly to us. We can ask all the relevant questions. They can provide us with the information, and we're also eliminating all the middlemen. So this is literally someone's got to grow the tea and process the tea and package the tea, and we're very fortunate to work directly with those people and can pass on incredible value to our customers.
So John, tell me and tell the audience, where do we source this tea and what makes it so special?
Yeah, great question. So all of our tea comes from Sri Lanka. So in the world of tea, Sri Lanka is actually the world's largest exporter. So it is a relatively small island nation. It's if you look at a map, it's the little teardrop-shaped island that's at the southern tip of the Indian Peninsula. So it's a tropical island. We say it's kind of like Hawaii, just a lot bigger. So it's beautiful, incredible beaches, beautiful mountain ranges, really a wonderful place, big tourist destination as well. But Sri Lanka is very special in the world of tea because of its climate, its soil, and its location in the world, where basically instead of looking at a year-round cycle where as you follow through the seasons, most tea producing countries get one primary harvest per year. Sri Lanka is different because of its location as an island in the Indian Ocean. It actually has two predominant weather patterns, which allows it to produce and harvest and process extremely high quality tea all year round. So elevation, climate, soil is what's contributing to the quality tea that comes out of Sri Lanka.
And what's the elevation where these tea estates are located?
Yeah, so there's three predominant categories in the tea industry, what we call low grown, mid grown, and high grown. So all three of those elevations produce different characteristics in the cup. And so what we do at PLANTSTRONG is we find the best characteristics for the type of tea that we want to produce. And so some of our teas are low grown, some of our teas are mid grown, and we do have some high grown teas as well in our portfolio.
And so I think one of the things that we're super proud of is that our teas don't have any flavorings or extracts, correct?
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest differences in PLANTSTRONG's teas compared to the rest of the industry, is that it's very easy to make a cup of tea taste like some specific flavor, be very flavorful because you're just adding flavorings. But we all know that at PLANTSTRONG, one of our tenets is whole food, plant-based nutrition. So that's one of the things we really tried to do with the line of tea, and really successfully were able to accomplish amazing flavors with using actual whole products, whole spices, whole plants, whole ingredients. A straight black tea, a straight green tea, sure, all the companies that are producing teas that have brands are doing teas without flavorings that way, but it's extremely rare to find things like a chai, things like a raspberry hibiscus, a number of the products that we sell that do not have flavoring. So that's a big differentiator for us.
Yeah. And I just want everybody to know, I'm going to just go through the list of hot teas and iced teas that we just introduced about 2 weeks ago. So we have and we're going to talk about this in a little more detail today. We have our vanilla black cumin chai hot tea. It's like a warm hug in a mug. We have our gooseberry green hot tea. This actually comes from the amla green, which actually has more antioxidants than any food on the planet. It's an antioxidant powerhouse. We have our PLANTSTRONG breakfast hot tea. It's seriously the perfect way to start the day. We have a golden chamomile hot tea. It's relaxing. It's immunity boosting, caffeine free. And I want to talk about that in a sec, John. And then our iced teas, we have our porch swing iced tea. This is kind of a traditional unsweetened tea. We have our lemongrass green iced tea. It's refreshing and super bright. There you go. And we have our raspberry hibiscus, which is sweet, tart, and delicious, and caffeine free as well. Caffeine free as well. So John, I see a lot of questions coming in, and this was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about, and that is, are our hot teas considered loose leaf or not?
Yeah, great question. So basically, the term loose leaf tea has been used a lot and used primarily as a quality differentiator. Typically, the conventional wisdom, and again, here we go with conventional wisdom busting. The conventional wisdom is the longer the leaf, the more premium the leaf is. Well, it's simply not true. The premiumness of a leaf really comes from where it's grown and how it's processed. So all of our teas are super premium teas, even though we have some teas that are smaller leaf sizes and some teas that are larger leaf sizes. Well, one of the things that we do for those larger leaves, and as you'll see when you purchase the teas, when you brew them, there's a tremendous amount of tea. Our tea bags are actually 3-gram tea bags. We have one that's 2.7 grams, but the industry standard is 2 grams, and ours is 50% larger than that. So we sourced a very large tea bag, and what you'll see is with the tea bag, there are these pyramid-shaped tea bags, which allows a lot of room for the tea to expand and all of the ingredients. And this is what allows us to put what is normally considered a loose leaf tea into a tea bag. If you think about the traditional kind of Lipton style tea bag, which is very thin and kind of pretty small, there's no way to put these longer leaf varieties of teas into those bags. And we're able to do that with the special bag that we have.
John, a lot of people are wanting to know, are these organic or not?
This is a tough question to answer, not because the simple answer is no, these are not organic. The reason is not because we have anything against organic. The reason is really twofold, is that number one, these teas, because they're all sourced from Sri Lanka has a very strict protocol for how they regulate the tea industry and if any pesticides are used. So the opportunity to purchase tea that is pesticide free, and all the testing that we did on all the teas from my previous company, 20 years working with Sri Lankan teas, we never had any teas test positive for any sort of pesticide residue. So that's a really nice kind of comforting, relaxing thing. That's the reason most people are looking for organic products. They don't want to consume any of those pesticides. So that doesn't exist in our products. Obviously, the other reason is we want to try to eliminate them from the environment completely. But we also want to be cognizant of our sourcing. And so organic sourcing for teas is extremely challenging simply because the tea farmer himself, when they try to produce organic tea, their yield drops tremendously and their cost goes way up. So if they can sell all of their product at a premium price, that works for the farmer. But that's just not the reality. The reality is they may sell 2 to 4% of their tea at that higher organic price. But the other 96% of what they produce, which remember was a lower yield at a higher cost, they actually end up going backwards. And during the time I spent in the Sri Lankan tea industry, when I started, there were 27 tea estates in Sri Lanka that were certified organic. When I left to come join PLANTSTRONG, there were only 3 remaining. So it's really just not economically sustainable for the tea farmers to produce organic teas in the ways that we're looking at. So our teas are not organic, but they are clean, and we're very proud of that.
So extropian transhuman, that is a person that is listening, that's their handle, says, last time I had a tea party, it was with Smirnoff. I like this better, non-alcoholic and vegan. Yeah, we hear you there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he also, or she says, the chamomile seems nice with ashwagandha. Whatever.
Yeah, and we'll do one of these on the golden chamomile and talk about ashwagandha. That's a great medicinal herb. The one directly above that, I see bleached tea bags. So let me actually, that brings up a really good point, if you don't mind. I'm going to talk just one more bit about our tea bags. So the industry has started doing a lot of these pyramid style tea bags for the reasons that I just mentioned, but the initial foray into this was using a nylon based material. So it was really petroleum based. Again, at PLANTSTRONG, that's not something that we really subscribe to. So these tea bags are made out of 100% plant-based material, which is really nice. So not only are we avoiding using petroleum products, but that means that these tea bags are biodegradable and compostable. So I do want to put a note out there, though, that it does require a higher heat, a higher temperature to be able to fully decompose than what most backyard gardeners would have in terms of a compost pile. So any municipal composting, if you've got that curbside pickup, any municipal entity that does composting, these will completely break down. Not just the bags, but also the string and the tag itself. So the tag is made out of obviously just a biodegradable paper, but the adhesive that uses it is the exact same material that the tea bag is made out of. So it will also completely biodegrade.
John, let's talk about caffeinated versus decaffeinated and where these teas land.
Sure. So on the line of teas that we have, as you mentioned, so the black cumin vanilla chai, and just to help the people that may not know what chai is simply a black tea that's infused with various spices. So our black cumin vanilla chai, as you might expect, it's got vanilla in it, vanilla beans. It's got black cumin in it. It has a variety of other spices as well: cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, star anise, black pepper, licorice, ginger, a lot of wonderful ingredients that really balance really well to produce this nice spicy chai flavor. So this tea, because it is a spiced black tea, all black teas have caffeine unless the caffeine has specifically been removed. So our gooseberry green tea, as you pointed out, so the green tea itself also has caffeine because it is tea. The gooseberries don't have caffeine, so because of the blend, it might not have as much as a straight green tea. The PLANTTSTRONG breakfast is a straight black tea. There's only one ingredient, 100% Ceylon black tea. So this does have caffeine. And the golden chamomile is 100% herbal teas. So there's no caffeine in the golden chamomile. And you talked about our iced teas. Our raspberry hibiscus is also 2 ingredients, raspberries and hibiscus. And so that is also caffeine free.
So Extropian Transhuman also wants to know, why aren't we sourcing our tea in the U.S.? How would you answer that?
Yeah, no, I've definitely gotten this question a lot as I've talked to people about tea. So interestingly, there's no commercial tea produced in the United States.
Wow.
Not in terms of any commercial volumes. So tea itself, and maybe this is a quick opportunity to talk about tea. All tea everywhere in the world, black tea, green tea, white tea, oolong tea, all comes from exactly the same species of plant called Camellia sinensis. So believe it or not, it's actually a tree. So if you left it unpruned, it would grow to be about 40 or 50 feet tall. So when you see pictures of tea fields, all the tea bushes, they look like bushes and they're very low. They're pruned to stay at that height, so they're easy to harvest the tea leaves. So the question about USA grown teas, there are some very small farms. There's one farm actually in South Carolina that's relatively large size. But in terms of commercial quantities, there's no tea grown in the United States.
So we are proudly sourcing our teas from Sri Lanka. And tell me a little bit about like the tea estate or plantation, I'm not sure the correct terminology there, that we are sourcing it from, and what are the conditions like there for the tea workers and the wages?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So tea estate and tea plantation, those are interchangeable terms. So you're correct in the way you're using those. And it's very important to think about the origin, to think about the workers, how they're treated, what their wages are, what their life is like. And that's another important part about sourcing for PLANTSTRONG, and was a big part of our company that we were working on over the last 20 years. So in Sri Lanka tea workers actually are unionized. The field workers and the factory workers, they have their own union. In Sri Lanka, as I mentioned, it's the world's largest exporter of tea by dollars. And it is actually the largest employer within the country. So believe it or not, 1 out of every 10 people that live in Sri Lanka work either directly or indirectly in the tea industry. So it's an extremely important part of the country, an important part of the culture. And so it's very important for the government to make sure that the industry is regulated very rigorously to make sure the workers are treated well. So in Sri Lanka, those workers are making more than 2 times the daily wage of any other tea producing country in the world. Additionally, and this is what's really exciting to me, all of our teas are coming from a system of tea factories that basically do what most of the tea in the world follows, which is what we call a small holder model. So about 70% of the tea produced in the world, and coincidentally about 70% of the tea produced in Sri Lanka, is grown under this method, which is a small individual family farmer that might have 1 acre or 4 acres of tea bushes, will grow their tea and harvest their tea. And in Sri Lanka, we harvest 365 days a year. And so they don't have the wherewithal to build a factory or the facilities to process that tea and turn it into what you see in the tea bag here. So what they do is they will sell their green leaf, the leaf that comes fresh off the bush every day to a local tea processing factory. So that factory may buy from hundreds or even thousands of individual tea family farmers in their local geographic area and produce that tea every day. One of the great things about Sri Lanka, when they use that model, the tea factory that purchases that tea is required to pay 68% of whatever price they sell the tea for. They're required to pay 68% of that to the farmer who grew the tea. So it's a wonderful positive feedback loop where the farmer is encouraged to grow the highest quality leaves that he can. The factory, of course, is trying to produce the best product they can, but both parties win when both parties produce quality product.
Love that.
Yeah.
What about, so can you make these hot teas into iced tea and vice versa? We have a question from Pamela wanting to know, can the iced teas be brewed hot?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I do it all the time. I'll take one of our hot tea bags and I'll brew it in about, half the amount of water you would normally brew it in. And then I'll take a plastic cup or I'll take our PLANTSTRONG tumbler here and fill it with ice. And I'll just pour that hot concentrated tea directly over the ice. And it's absolutely wonderful. The chai is surprisingly refreshing. It's a wonderful way to do it. Conversely, you absolutely can brew the iced teas into a hot tea. The one thing I would caution, though, is just be aware that the iced tea pouches are significantly larger than regular tea bag. So they would produce a lot more tea. So you actually could cut those or tear those open and basically take a small scoop out of that if you wanted to do that. Or go ahead and brew a whole quart of hot tea. That would be wonderful too.
Mm-hmm. So John, you've had a lot of tea over the last 20 years. In your opinion, your unbiased opinion,
of course,
how would you say that these PLANTSTRONG teas stack up against some of the other teas that are out there?
Yeah, well, again, because we're sourcing 100% Ceylon tea, and frankly, a lot of the spices in our chai are also Ceylon based or grown in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka is called one of the spice islands. So they're also famous for their spices. And a lot of it has to do with the quality of the spices, but also things like cinnamon, which is a really interesting ingredient that we're using. We're using 100% Ceylon cinnamon, again, only coming from Sri Lanka. And cinnamon actually is only indigenous to two areas, Vietnam and Sri Lanka. And so amazingly in the United States, other varieties of plants that have a similar taste to cinnamon are actually called cinnamon here legally. So the FDA allows for both of these plants to be called the same thing. So most Americans actually have never had cinnamon. They've had a product called cassia, which is the same genus of plants, but a different species. So true Ceylon cinnamon is a real treat. It's much sweeter than cassia, a little bit lighter flavor profile. It's really, really nice. So this is one of the things that also differentiates what we're doing.
Look at you go. You're just a wealth of information. That is so cool. Marley wants to know, do the tea bags hold more than usual, or it's just the cold brews? You see it there on the screen?
So yeah, actually the tea bags are much bigger. Here, let me show you. This is an iced tea pillow pouch. So this is the size of that. This is a quart size bag, and you can see the difference of this compared to how much goes into 1 cup for tea there. So this is the real difference. And I do want to point out that for the iced tea bags, just for anyone that's purchasing these are not currently made out of that same plant-based material. This is actually a polypropylene. So it's completely human and food safe. It's the same kind of stuff that they'll make medical implants out of, but this is not biodegradable or compostable. So what I'll actually do, and what's really nice about this, these are very robust. They won't break open when you're heating them, but there's a grain in the mesh. So you can actually just tear them open really nicely. And so I'll pour the tea leaves out into my compost, and then there's only this small amount that I'll end up throwing into the trash.
Nice. Marley just responded with, oh my gosh, that raspberry hibiscus sounds delicious.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I would say that with all the development that we did, I think we actually ended up having the most difficult time creating a very delicious raspberry hibiscus without flavoring. it's such a common tactic in the industry to use flavoring, especially in fruit flavored products, and especially in iced teas, because once you ice it, the aromas and the flavors tend to get dulled a little bit. So making sure that that comes through nice and strong and flavorful when it's iced was definitely a challenge for our wonderful team that was working on developing these.
Extropian transhuman keeps banging at the door here. And she's like, what makes tea plant strong? How would you answer that?
Oh, wonderfully so. Is that tea is so plant strong because not only is it 100% whole food plant-based product, but it is packed full of amazing nutrients, phytochemicals, compounds that help so many aspects of your health. Far too numerous to mention in a short, quick Facebook Live like this, but any quick search on the internet will show you. And what's amazing is people have been consuming tea this way, Camellia sinensis, boiled in hot water and consumed as a beverage for over 5,000 years. But it's been really in the last 50 or 100 years that the people in the white lab coats have actually gone into the labs, found and isolated these phytochemicals and the polyphenols and the antioxidants that are in tea, and really started to understand doing these controlled trials to prove and show what people have been saying for hundreds and thousands of years is actually true. It's extremely healthy, extremely health promoting and beneficial product.
Mm-hmm. Marley has the idea of mixing that hibiscus with some ginger or lemon ginger is probably amazing.
Yeah, and I do want to point people on our website and on the tins. If you buy one of these gift tins, we have a section that's called Make It Your Own, and it's got some wonderful suggestions about how to do something other than just put the tea bag in water. And I want to give a shout out to Jess Haggerty, who wrote all of these and came up with these amazing ways to drink tea. And chai, which is interesting, chai is something that people will traditionally in certain cultures consume as a latte. So the very first thing that we would say, it's wonderful with water. It's the way I drink it, but put your favorite plant-based milk in it. Enjoy it as a latte. She's even got an idea that we actually do have printed on the tins and it's on the website. Get a blender, brew your chai, put some plant-based milk in it and throw a date or two in it and blend it. And you get this sweet, frothy, almost like a frappuccino. It's a really wonderful drink. So amazing ways that you can spice it up, so to speak, and enjoy it in different ways.
Yeah. And John, people can purchase this either in these beautiful tins or in the bags. Can you talk about the difference of each?
Yeah, sure. So I've got our Plant Strong breakfast bag here, and this is the tin. So it's exactly the same tea. It's exactly the same tea bag, but we look at this as this is a great way to store teas on your countertop if you'd like to display them. It's a wonderful gift item. I know a lot of people took advantage of this over the holiday season and gave them as gifts. But this bag, and we spent a lot of time really thinking about tea and what's the best way for Plant Strong to get into the tea business. And so these bags, what's inside is just the loose tea bags. So we're not doing an additional envelope packaging. We're doing the least amount of packaging we can per tea bag. And one of the nice things about these bags is they hold 30 bags of tea. So if you're like me and you have a tea every morning, this is a great way to just once a month, you can sign up for the subscription on our website and you can just have them show up on your doorstep on a regular basis. So that's the benefit of this, but it's exactly the same tea, just different packaging.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. John, why not instant tea?
Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with instant tea, right? And people do ask me, well, what's the best way to drink tea? I say the best way to drink tea is however you're going to enjoy it. People also say, what's the best tea to drink? And I say, again, whatever tea you're going to enjoy is the best tea for you to drink. So when it comes to instant tea, if that's something that is the only way for you to enjoy tea, there's nothing wrong with it. But an instant tea is essentially what we're doing here. It's tea that then gets steeped in hot water to create that beverage, but then they essentially dehydrate that. And so it's an additional step in the process. It requires more energy, it requires more carbon, it requires more effort. And it's usually more expensive. So, what we say is go directly to the source, get it from the tea leaves yourself.
Yeah. Verna Shavala wants to know, I have such a hard time liking tea, especially green tea. I've tried many, many brands. I would love to try Plant Strong. Which one would you recommend to try?
Well, I would recommend the Plant Strong Gooseberry Green Tea. But no, the reason I say that, so green tea is really interesting. So I mentioned it earlier, and maybe I'll take 20 seconds and try to run through this as quickly as I can. All tea, everywhere on earth, whatever variety of tea it is, green, black, white, oolong, is not only the exact same species of plant, but it's the exact same leaf. So the only difference in the teas is what happens to that leaf after you take it off the bush. So you can pluck a tea leaf, and then you can decide, do I want to make a green tea or do I want to make a black tea? So the only difference between green and black tea and oolong is the amount of oxidation that takes place. So if you take a bite out of an apple and you put it on the counter for 15 minutes, it turns brown. That's oxidation. That is the only difference between green tea and black tea. The leaves themselves have everyone's heard of the polyphenols, right? That are in tea, these wonderful antioxidants. They reside at one layer of the tea leaf. So think of a tea leaf like an onion. There's multiple layers separated by different cell walls. In a different layer of the leaf is an enzyme called polyphenol oxidase. When you roll the tea leaves or chop them up, you rupture that difference, that space between those two layers, and the enzymes and the polyphenols come in contact with each other. That combined with the oxygen in the air oxidizes those polyphenols. So black tea has oxidized polyphenols and green tea has unoxidized polyphenols. That's really the only difference. So when it comes to green tea, the way that you prevent that oxidative process from happening is you heat the leaves before you start rolling or chopping the leaves. There's two predominant ways of heating. One is using steam, and the other is essentially pan roasting. It's the most predominant method in the types of green tea that most Americans have tried, which is either from China or Japan, are predominantly steamed. That provides, some people call it like a kind of a fishy taste to it, a seaweedy taste to it. And it's very much enjoyed by very many people around the world. But we find in America, the pan roasted style of green tea is a little bit more earthy, a little bit more grassy. It's a little bit more within the American palate. So it's not just, hey, the PLANTSTRONG green tea is the best. It really is a different profile. And we selected this roasting methodology instead of the steaming to try to be a little bit more in the American wheelhouse for flavor profiles.
So you mentioned just a second ago that the difference between, if I heard this correctly, black and green is one's oxidized and one is unoxidized. Is that correct?
Correct.
So my intuition tells me that something that's unoxidized would be healthier. Is that incorrect?
Well, it's different. And the way I try to explain it is, which one's healthier for you, vitamin A or vitamin C? Well, it's crazy. They're both extremely good for you. They're just different. So oxidized polyphenols and unoxidized polyphenols are different, but they're both extremely health promoting. And a lot of Americans believe that green tea is healthier than black tea. And I believe, I don't have any scientific evidence for this, and I don't know if anyone actually knows why that tidbit of conventional wisdom got out, but I think it's because when Americans first started to do studies on tea, they thought of tea, well, tea comes from China. So they went to China or Japan, and the most predominant style of tea in those two countries is green tea. So they just did their first studies on green tea. And so all of the health promoting benefits of green tea, the cathogens, EGCGs, all of these wonderful compounds, they proved this is really good for your health. So people said, yes, green tea is really good for your health. What's amazing is the tea industry has started to do all of the same studies on black tea. And what they're finding is the same level of health promoting benefits, because again, the amount of polyphenols is exactly the same. The amount of antioxidants is exactly the same. They're just different. So they're working different pathways within the body, but they're both equally healthy.
Nice. Marley just said, and I've got to, echo it. She said, wow, this is really great info, John. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, so gang, we're running up at about 35 minutes. We'll gladly have John back to talk about more tea talk with John Cullicutt. But John, thank you for joining me this Friday. And, it was a labor of love getting these teas out, but, with a lot of your persistence and due diligence and hard work, we were able to bring these actually in late 2022 and couldn't be more excited about them.
Yeah, my pleasure to help in any way I can. And I would love to come back. So much more to talk about.
All right. All right, everybody. Hey, Keep it plant strong. Have a fantastic weekend. And if you need some tea, you know where to go.